Well, hello and welcome, Manna audience. I am glad to be with you again today. And you know what? We have a special treat today. This is going to be fun. This is going to be insightful. And we're truly privileged and honored with this guest. And before I introduce him, let me just say this. You've heard the term celebrity fitness trainer, right? You imagine these people who are working with some of the biggest stars in show business, doing private training sessions, maybe traveling with them on location. Today in studio, we have, and this is no exaggeration, the original and greatest celebrity fitness trainer with us, Dan Isaacson. We're going to have a conversation. I met him at a business networking event in Beverly Hills about 3 months ago. We hit it off tremendously well. He starts telling me his background, people he's worked with, things he's done, and I'm just jaw dropped and very, very intrigued. And a man of high character, faith, prioritizes God in his life, and just wants to help people get healthy. So it's a blessing, and we're looking forward to our conversation. Welcome, Dan.
Well, thank you. That's exactly right. I believe that God connects our dots, and this is certainly one of them for me. My wife and I, when we started this company some years ago, we realized that we wanted to do something that was special for people and really to be there for people, to help people. So looking
Mm-hmm.
forward to this conversation with you, and congratulations. I mean, your honors and things you've done over your career and your background is amazing.
Oh, well, thank you, Dan. Thank you. I'm blessed with some great upbringing and some natural talent, and then just a lot of hard work and reliance on God along the way. But thank you. That's very kind of you to say.
And for people that don't know, I've looked at your fitness formats and what you do physically. You're really in shape, brother.
Thanks. Yeah, I feel like you got to live the message. I
You
can't be
do.
sitting here being a health and wellness doctor without being healthy myself, right? So yeah, I got to live the message. I just did a training this morning. I got on my Peloton. I actually had an oxygen deprivation
Oh,
mask
there
on.
you go.
Yeah, training with that thing cranked up. So I got my heart rate up today
You know,
for
it's
sure.
funny on that note as an example, because I am an older guy in the profession. We'll
Hmm.
talk about that in a second. But I remember when they first came out, the oxygen mask, and we tested those at one of the studios. And
Yeah,
like we did with the polar heart rate monitor. I was the first person to actually sell that on QVC because
yeah,
I didn't think anybody could sell it. But at any rate, it's a great honor to
fascinating.
be here.
Absolutely. So, listening audience, here's what I want to do. I want to give you some highlights, and I want to name drop for a minute on purpose. Dan's a very humble person, but I want to tell you a little bit about him and what he's done, and the reasons for my enthusiasm here today. So, first of all, he has worked with some of the top names along the way. I'm talking about John Travolta. He trained John Travolta for the movie Staying Alive. Laurence Fishburne, The Matrix, trained him. Johnny Depp, Pirates of the Caribbean, trained him. Selma Hayek in Fools Rush In. Tom Hanks for Philadelphia. Christopher Reeve for one of the Superman movies. And Billy Crystal in the movie City Slickers, just as an example. Number two, he co-starred with Jane Fonda on her workout video entitled Workout with Weights, which was the first weight training program video developed for women. I think that's extraordinary, Dan. Furthermore, he created the modern day concept of personal training and fitness centers on Hollywood studios, placing them at Paramount Studio and Sony Pictures Entertainment. The development of personal training studios on Hollywood lots. I didn't know that was the thing, actually, and he created that whole concept. Furthermore, he took that mobile, so he developed the first mobile fitness trailers for on-location production, and he was contracted to oversee all production fitness services to Columbia and TriStar Film and Television Studios. He was also the first fitness editor of ABC's Good Morning America. Phenomenal show, by the way, Dan. I used to watch that, I think, growing up. I loved it. He sent me a copy. He was in Time Magazine. He had a feature piece in Time Magazine entitled Body Styler of the Rich and Famous, in which he had pictures of himself working with David Hasselhoff, with Linda Evans, and with Indy 500 race car driver Danny Sullivan. He was also the executive director of the California Governor's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports. And finally, he got his start in athletic club management, and he managed and directed the first full-service athletic club in Newport Beach, entitled the Newport Beach Sporting Club. So, Dan, we welcome you. Let's jump right in. I noticed the hat you're wearing. It's in reference and homage to Jack LaLanne. Tell us about the meaning of that hat for you. Jack LaLanne is a big hero of mine in the fitness
No,
sense as well.
absolutely. I will. A couple really quick corrections. Johnny Depp, I've worked for with a lot of time. Our first film was actually Donnie Brasco. Later on, he's done a lot of different things, including Pirates of the Caribbean. But Donnie Brasco was the one I really worked with him on. His first time he ever did weight training. And Salma Hayek, I did a few things with, actually with her co-star. I worked with him prior to that particular movie more than Salma. But it was funny when I first met her, she wanted to have a treadmill in her, and she was really great to start. Fitness wasn't her thing, but she was going to do it for the film. Really great lady. Great people. To answer your question, this is one of the greatest. Jack LaLanne, our godfather of fitness, his wife, Elaine LaLanne, who's going to be 99 in March, still works out today. I could call her tomorrow and say, I'm coming up to work out. Should be there. Her husband created the very first leg extension, leg curl machine. He started the very first facility in 1936. He is the godfather of the chair workout, loved by all. And Elaine, I'm saying all that because they've connected with Mark Wahlberg, and there's going to be a life story and documentary made on Jack's life, big time film. And so I really connect and thank Mark Wahlberg. And I'm going to have I'll put his hat on as well. I'm a big hat guy. This is Jack's life, and now the municipal group and Mark is training now for that particular movie. And I admire him. He's a man that says, stay prayed up, and I would agree.
Phenomenal. I heard about Jack LaLanne from my father growing up, and I heard about him in the context of these absolutely extraordinary fitness feats he was doing. He was in the Guinness Book of World Records, I think still is, for things like swimming handcuffed, across from Alcatraz Island in the middle of San Francisco Bay, which has huge waves, huge currents, and sharks, by the way. And not only swimming handcuffed from Alcatraz, but towing a barge behind him that was loaded with, I don't know, a couple 100 pounds. I mean, stuff that you think it's not possible. He did this. He had like a Catalina swim, I think, to Santa Barbara, again, handcuffed or towing people, like these extraordinary feats. Yeah. At later ages of life, too. I'm talking 40s, 50s, and 60s. I'm not talking just age 20. I'm talking into his later years. Things that were Guinness Book of World Records worthy. And I just like, who is this guy? And then I looked up some videos of him on YouTube, and he's very much about mindset, staying positive, eating healthy, right? He says his own turning point occurred when he was a teenager. He started off addicted to junk food, sugar, processed foods. He had acne. He was out of weight. He had no energy. Yep. And his mom took him to a health presentation from Paul Bragg in Oakland, California. And he basically sort of had a come to Jesus moment and went up and talked to Paul afterwards and said, I got to make some changes. And he swore off all that junk food, started eating healthy, and became a phenom and lived his message, his message. Yeah,
no, absolutely. He did.
Yeah.
And that's all true. And Elaine, his partner in all of that is about the same way. I mean, this lady's amazing. Everyone loves her to pieces. She's one of my best friends. 99, and she's lived it right. And Jack lived to be 96. So these are living examples of our foundation for fitness that I want to make sure everyone realizes that when you take a look, and we talked about it earlier on as friends a little while ago, and there's sight, hindsight, and foresight. Those are the three things I think about, and I want to share with everyone. We have sight. 70% of our information comes in through our eyes. We have 5 senses, but 70% comes through what we see. So what we see is very important, and how we remember it is very important. We can do simple things when you're out on a walk, see a tree that doesn't have any leaves, remember the house number. When you get back to your house, try to remember it again. Very easy things that we can do all the time cognitively to be alive. I'm a big believer in balance and focus. So with that, I think that what we have to do today is to be understanding that it's all about balance and focus. And Jack did those things very, very well. He was a God family work guy for sure.
Phenomenal. I encourage you all to look him up in my listening audience. Many of you are familiar with him, I'm sure, but if not, look up Jack LaLanne. There's a movie now apparently with Mark Wahlberg coming out, so that'll be phenomenal. Well, let's do this. Let's jump in right into the question on everyone's mind, okay? Which is, when I saw the pictures of John Travolta and the physique that you got him in shape for the movie Staying Alive, I mean, it was extraordinary. He was lean, he was cut, he had to be flexible, he had to act like a professional dancer in that movie. And so what is the key, or what are some actual strong keys or insights for getting someone lean and strong, as you did with him, for example?
It's interesting. My wife and I were talking about this before because I was going to do this interview, and without Kim, we did this together. We started a company called the Winning Results. Sports Management International was a company that had a trademark called Winning Results. We created a method that became a research-based method that we did. The first that we did, so we could read a movie script and then train accordingly to what the adaptations were in the first 9 months of possibilities. So I think the real thing with the key to begin with everyone, I want to let them know there's two things they have to remember: consistency and routine. Whatever your routine, it needs to be consistent. And there is definitely a marked change physiologically. Exercise physiologists will tell us this. Once you start something, if you consistently go through it and increase the overload or the intensity of it, it's going to have an adaptation internally. So body leanness is really about, first of all, understanding that there's a nutriently dense diet of a lot of colors you need to put in your life. I like what Jack LaLanne said: if man made it, don't eat it. And in many ways, he's right, particularly today. We have to take out the saturated fats. We have to take out the kinds of things that are put in there. And in fact, Jack would also say, if you get to a point when you read the information of what the food is on the box and you can't read the name, then don't eat it. It makes sense. So that's a very natural approach. But consistency and leanness becomes with consistency and a way to have a routine every day. So let's take strength training as an example. We know that overload is important. So I usually will, do an active warm up before exercise. I'll then go into increasing the overload for whatever it is and was what I want to do. And then the last 3 repetitions of anything you do, whether you're doing body weight or whatever, they should be difficult. They should be challenging within comfortable. Jane Fonda used to say comfortable tension. So anybody can do that at an age. The other thing I think is important with body leanness is to understand your generation and the age in which you're in. We now have Generation Alpha, we have Generation Z, we have the millennials, we have X, and I think we have baby boomers, and then I forget the last ones they call the ones before baby boomers. But in each of those cases, there's an age relationship. There's a relationship of the things you have medically. Once you have evaluation of what you have, you may have a spine that is challenged. You may have, you may just not like things that you would not want to do. So it all takes in a course of, again, whatever you're going to do in muscular fitness, cardiovascular fitness, and nutrition, all those 3 categories, make sure that you're consistent always with it, and there is a routine to it.
I like those points. And, this brings up the importance of mindset, right? So, audience, if you listen to what he said, what is the key to getting lean and strong? He didn't talk about any specific food you must eat or specific exercise you must do, right? He said consistency, routine, and overload. And those are mental concepts, right? Doing something consistently and sticking to your routine is a mental hurdle that we all must overcome. And we have small ones in our lives that we do successfully every day, right? Take a shower, brush our teeth, etc. We need to learn how to build out that routine a bit more to start to encompass what's healthy for our bodies. But that is a mental concept ultimately. And then the idea of overload, I like that you mentioned that. There's no progress without pushing ourselves a little bit. Right. One of my rules for having a successful day, I did a podcast about that a little while ago, but one of them was do something physically hard. That's my personal rule. Not just something physical. It needs to be physically hard, because if it's not hard, I'm not growing. Right. And again, that's comes down to a mental concept. It's a truism and an axiom and kind of a principle of life that in order to grow, there's discomfort involved.
That's correct.
Right. If you want to stretching is uncomfortable. If you want to get stronger, your muscles are going to have to get uncomfortable. If you want to learn anything, your brain's going to get uncomfortable, right? If you want to try to understand your spouse and have a successful marriage, emotionally, you're going to be uncomfortable at times. Right. So anyways, there's no growth without some discomfort. So we've got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. We've got to get comfortable pushing and embracing that and not shying away from it, right? In sort of just laziness or self-protection or complacency, that kind of thing. So that's what I'm taking away from you. It's a lot about the mindset, really, to get lean and strong.
Forget that we actually have a fixed mindset. We have a growth mindset. We have I'm in the moment mindset. And it's very important when you take a look at mindset. But mindset has to do with a number of different categories: to be positive, to all those kinds of things we've talked about. Know that you can do it. Have faith in yourself, all etc. But it really takes a look at what's the category of mindset are you in? Are you in a growth mindset? You're in a fixed mindset? Are you in a wake up mindset? This morning, as an example, I get up in a mindset of, I have a routine. I get up and I go through my own routine of I actually start stretching and I get out of bed. We have another bedroom. I go in, I look in the mirror. I encourage people, look in the mirror and just start to move. And you'll find if you just start upper body first and you start to just go out, find out, because you wake up unbalanced and you want to try to stand on one foot, the other, shift your weight back and forth, wake yourself up. That's a mindset of morning. Then go to a mindset of how I'm going to water myself. That's the next step, which I do very well. I start drinking water. We've, like most of us, and I would encourage everyone to try to go back to glass and not plastic. Give a little shout out there, which not everyone can do, but do the best you can do. And, then start to just wake up say hello to yourself, and, do things that, wow, that kind of hurts. You'll go three planes of motion. We have the frontal, we have the sagittal, we have the frontal, and we have the transverse. We just get in a mirror, say hello to yourself, and you'll and just look at your posture, bring your shoulder blades back. Every time you're going to learn something. You're going to start talking to yourself. How does that feel? And once you do that, you can become alive. That's the key. That's all the other things that everyone talks about and all the nuances and all the things we have today are the same thing as in Jack LaLanne's life in 1950. That's what he was doing. He was trying to wake people up.
Right. I hear what you're saying in there. One of the messages I'm taking away, I'm hearing, is about getting in touch with your body. Yes. Right? Like spending some time actually listening to yourself, paying attention. How do you feel? What's sore? What's tight? What's stiff? A lot of times we're rushing around and A, too busy to do work for our bodies, right? But B, even when we're doing it, we're like listening to some loud music, watching TV at the gym, checking other people out at the gym. Like we're not actually being mindful and quiet and in touch with ourselves and what's going on. And I remember a couple different scenarios of this. You talked about a mirror. I remember listening to one of the guys who was a former high-level bodybuilder. He was like second in Olympia for numbers of years. Anyways, he talked about the mind-muscle connection. And he said, this is why training with a mirror is very important. You've got to cultivate the mind-muscle connection, and he said, especially like when training something you can't see, like your back. So whenever he did back exercises, he was making sure there was a mirror there because he needed to see those muscles because, the muscle can't move unless the mind can communicate with it, first of all. So your muscle can only get as strong as the connection is between your mind that says fire muscle and grow, right? So to cultivate that mind-muscle connection, you have to slow down. You have to become mindful and even watch and look at how you're moving and kind of put your mind, when I'm lifting weights and doing strength training, I slow down and I try to put all my focus and energy inside that muscle. I'm trying to imagine like I'm in that muscle and I'm doing something. I'm not in my head. I'm like, I've crawled down in the muscle and now I'm doing something, right? And it's very slow and it's very effortful and my eyes are closed half of the time. But that's when I have tremendous strength gains and tremendous physical changes when I'm actually paying attention and getting in touch to what I'm doing. The other thing that's really helped me, Dan, is when I go to the gym at this point, I have a routine of going, absolutely. But when I go, I would say 90% of the time, I'm not sure what I'm going to do when I walk in that door. It's an open question for me, right? And it's based on how do I feel. So same thing, I'm getting in touch. I'm like, you know what? My shoulder's a little achy. It's not quite recovered from whatever. I'm not going to push it today. My legs, look, my legs feel strong. I think I'm going to do some heavy leg day today, right? So I'm like, it's an ongoing conversation with myself. I don't even know how long the workout's going to last, for example. It usually ends up 40 minutes to an hour and a half, but I don't know. It's like, I'll know when I'm done. But I'm listening to myself and I'm having this dialogue and adventure with my body. It keeps it fresh. It keeps me from overtraining and it's done a lot of good. So that's what I'm taking away.
Exactly right. And let's, I guess I got off track there again. Let's go back to John and Staying Alive. Because Staying Alive is an interesting concept. Wonderful movie. Please watch John. I'm a big John. I've been friends for years and I can't say enough good things about him. What a wonderful man. And for him to do that movie as he did it was still one of the greatest feats, I think, at that time of anyone. He had to become a professional dancer. I mean, when we met that moment in time, we met actually in Aspen, Colorado. That's where I was working. And he asked me to train him for the movie Staying Alive. But I didn't know because I had never truly trained anyone of that caliber at all before. In fact, I'd never really trained a person for a film role before. That was my very first. So I had to really scramble and I was on the hook, if you will, because Sylvester Stallone was directing it. They were two biggest movie stars in the world at that moment in time.
Mm.
And when I got involved with it, I thought I had to really scramble to put together a program because we had exactly 3 months. We started this September 6th, 1982. We finished really the weight loss and he was ready to go December 6th, 1982. That's 3 months exactly.
Wow.
They started, the movie was shot in January 6th it started, as I recall, shot in downtown LA. It was the final scene of the movie. It's the movie that if you Google John Travolta staying alive, you see him with his shirt off. That's that scene and all the dance stuff. That was shot the very first time. So movies are very interesting because sometimes they'll be shot in sequence and you have to have those adaptations. John was amazing because he got down to his 165 pounds. I mean, it was remarkable, the weight loss, but more importantly, the choreographers and the dancers and the other dancers before the choreographers and the work he had to do every day and the weight loss he was going through at the time. He was heroic. I mean, anyone that does that, and many people have. It was that particular film, though, did launch without question, in my opinion, personal training in Hollywood, because immediately after that, I had people call and I told John that he said, everybody's going to want to look like this. Well, we'll look like this, meaning that he took in 33 months and still today, it's a standard. P90X, they all talk about 3 months, 3 months, 3 months. You can, in fact, totally change your body in 3 months. There's no question about that. It's not easy. It's easy. I think the adaptations are easy to access by virtue of the routine and consistency you'll go through and the time frame you want to do it in. But if the rubber hits the road, depending on your age and where you are, you can make a dramatic change in 3 months.
Yeah, that's very encouraging. That's encouraging for people. I think that's good to get a hold of that. If you can dedicate yourself 12 weeks from now, dramatic change. If John Travolta can go from being an actor to looking like and acting like a professional dancer in 3 months, right? Like, that's pretty extraordinary. I also think the people in the Matrix, like Laurence Fishburne or Keanu Reeves, they had to go from being an actor to looking like a supernatural kung fu master. Like, had the flexibility. How did that happen? I want to talk about that in a minute. But are there specifics you want to share with us about what you did with John over those 3 months? What did his routine look like?
Yeah, well, the routine was, since we were just starting, I would actually do all of John's supplements. I would hand do them in a little bag every day. Everything at that moment in time we didn't have nutritional analysis. We didn't have a lot of things in that moment in time. It was basically just run, dance, work out, and eat well. But we really did the whole training was done at his ranch at that moment in time where he was living. And Paramount had set up a huge circus tent behind his house. And that's where all the dance took and put in a dance floor. Hollywood's great. And Arnold Schwarzenegger said it best: the best business people in the world are people making a movie, because they have a time frame of start to finish. It's very pre-production, post-production, and post-production. And the movie comes out in a week or two, and you know how well you've done. It's a remarkable business. I have a great admiration for actors and producers. I come from that. I know at times you get a bit dissed, if you will, but they're great creative geniuses, most of them, caliber ones. And so, but you have to really stay with it. And that's what we did. So he would dance all day and work out. And then we had a program where we would eat 3 meals a day and snacks. He would have them. We timed it all. It's a timed function. We took out certain things that he always liked to do that he wasn't going to do at that moment in time, which we didn't want to do in terms of foods. John likes a good chocolate chip cookie. I mean, I think, and not that everyone doesn't, but he really stayed. I mean, he was amazing. 3 meals, 2 snacks. I basically woke him up in the morning and said goodnight at night. And massage therapy was engaged in that process during the weeks for recovery. And he just was a trooper, didn't miss a day. And we had to drive down from Santa Barbara to LA every week with Polaroid pictures, which I still have, to show Stallone how he was doing.
Really?
All true. And
you had to document it.
We need more chest. We know pecs, Dan, for this role. They had picked, interestingly enough, Rudolf Nureyev was a great Russian dancer. Everyone can look it up on Google. Rudolf Nureyev with his shirt off, and you look at John Travolta with his shirt off. exposed, if you will, in that dance scene, you'll see the same physique. That was our picture.
That was a picture they gave you. They said,
we had a line.
reproduce this.
We pulled out pictures of a vision. Now we're back to the basis of training. You'll get a picture to what you want to look at, what you want to be, and anyone can do this. If you're weddings or whatever, you want to put your picture up, and then get to a point when you look in the mirror. How do you mirror that picture? How do you mirror that, and how do you look at that? It's very important. Then being able to take pictures every week to keep you on track, very important. Most people won't want to do it, but it does work. Now we had Polaroids then, so it's easy to do. John was so proud of his physique afterwards. Geraldo Rivera had his own nighttime show than our daytime show. We were on his show, and we actually showed, you can Google it, Geraldo Rivera and John Travolta, and you'll see us with his before and after pictures, because Geraldo wanted to see it on camera. I think it's the first and only time I've seen it on television.
Phenomenal. That's so interesting. I'm just thinking of
Stallone and John are heroes for me, what they did. I mean, and they couldn't have been, they're the nicest people in the world. John is amazing with aviation, and Sly is amazing with all he does. And
phenomenal.
Been a part of that.
I'm imagining, as you said, they pitch a circus tent in his backyard up in Santa.
It wasn't a yard, but it was a big span.
Ranch, yeah.
And that's why John had to go out, but it was all right there.
Right. Well, so speaking of that, let's segue into, you said that you created the modern day concept of personal training and fitness centers on Hollywood studio lots, right? Tell me about that. What did that consist of? What did it look like? How revolutionary was that?
I had gone to graduate school at University of Illinois, and when I got out of Illinois, my first job was a swim tennis club. We actually took our girl to the Olympics, who was the youngest girl in the American team, 14, and she made it to finals of the 800-meter freestyle. So from that jump start, I then went into the athletic club development business, was hired, and a partnership formed with 4 other guys, 5 of us, created we're part of a 60,000 square foot facility downtown Denver. And at that moment in time, I understood the club business because it was just starting. All the things in fitness were just starting, quite frankly. Nautilus was the first person that we put in. All those, the fitness world, it was the start of the 80s, late 70s and early 80s. But, I had always had that. So after training John, I didn't know. My wife and I were going back to Aspen, is where we were living. And but we had so many calls. I asked John, I said, what should I do? He said, Dan, you should do this. He said, everybody's going to want to have this transformation look. And so that's what we did. So it worked out to, as I recall, I thought what Paramount had paid me, it worked out to, we charged people up front to train. We charged $1,000 for 3 times a week and $1,500 a month for 5 times a week. That's how we started. And people paid up front. That really started the high expensive prices of personal training, which unfortunately no longer, but that was the moment in time it happened. That's how it all came down. And that's why I think that moment in time with what John did with me really did set that. Stallone was a big part too, because of his physique and bodybuilding. And with Rocky, that coincided with that. He made this, from Rocky 1 to Rocky 2, you see the change. That was through bodybuilding.
Right.
And other things he's so great at and was at that time. So, hats off to those 2 great stars. They were great mentors for America.
And then to the point of, you mentioned the first mobile fitness trailers for on-location production and fitness services. What did you put in these trailers, and who used these trailers? How did you bring that together?
I didn't really answer your question. So my goal was to get on the lot. To go back for a moment. So I spent 3 years trying to get on the lot of Paramount Pictures. Okay. All my people said, studios are not going to pay for that, Dan. They've had in the past traineries. They had spas. MGM had a great spa. They certainly had trained people that helped train actors for film roles. I don't want to make it sound like I was the first, but no one had really built a modern day personal training center on a lot. And finally, Paramount agreed to do it. So we actually operated their old gym that was called the Studio Gym, which we renamed Winning Results. And then next to it, we had trailers that were converted with first-class equipment of the time. We had a circuit of weight training equipment. We had, treadmills, and of course, everybody that had new stuff came into our place because that's where they wanted to showcase it. So I got the all the things that came in. I'm trying to think, the slides they use today. Most everything today that you see in some way, shape, or form came through that facility. Polar heart rate monitors, the oxygen
deprivation mask. Yeah.
we were all doing that. The climbers, Versa climbers, we had those. They were all tested there. But I wanted to be on the lot. And then Peter Guber and John Peters produced the movie Batman. And I had trained John. And when they became the CEOs of the new Sony Corp that bought the MGM lot, I was the guy that was brought in to develop the first newly built facility in the world on a studio lot at Sony Pictures, which was the old MGM lot. That was great because we would go out, and the largest sound stage is still at Sony. The movie Hook was shot in there with the ship.
Okay.
And so when we would walk across the walkway there, we'd be walking over the yellow brick road that had been there years before. So it's a great history. I love Hollywood, that moment in time. But again, back to training, we had mobile fitness trailers because Jean-Claude Van Damme had done a movie, and he required that he have a place to do his martial arts. And so when that film was over, head of production there came and said, Dan, why don't you take these trailers? And I said, I'll be happy to take those trailers. So we leased them out, revamped them, repainted them, and put in gym equipment, full on gym equipment, treadmills and line equipment and dumbbells and what you would expect. Still the same today as it was then. And we took them on location. They were on Geronimo and Moab, Utah. They went all over, and we would lease them out. So eventually then the PGA did that. I'm not saying they followed us, but it seemed like they did. And many others, then other stars did their own because they could afford to do it. And Nick Nolte had his own trailer. I think Cruise had their own trailer. Nick Nolte, I know, did. And others did the same thing.
Interesting. Okay, so then Stars got in the business of, I'm going to rent a fitness trailer as like my mobile gym and park this thing wherever I am shooting a movie and stay in shape.
We did that. That Tom Hanks used that for Apollo 13 over at Universal. He rented one of our trailers from Sony to do that.
Wow.
And my goal though was to really give Hollywood and that's why we also built. I developed this format that we spent a year on with a PhD, a wonderful PhD.
Yeah.
He came in to work out, be a trainer with me, finishing up at USC. And I said, no, what I'm going to do with you, I'm going to hire you. You're going to be you'll be my professor. And I'm going to go through all the untrained state opportunities and all the exercise science, biomechanics that we need to do something that specifically in 9 months to train an actor for a film role. And so that's what we did. We created our own certification to train an actor for a film role. It was called the Winning Results Program and Method. And it was great. Everything that's in there is applicable today. But my goal was if you're working with actors of this caliber, you have to give them the best information. Don't kid around. Do research. I've heard a lot about science-based research. Well, yeah.
Right.
And I really am thrilled that my wife and I were able to, with our company, be able to do that for actors at that moment in time. It's way beyond it today. But at that moment in time, you have to be true to yourself.
Right.
And I just couldn't. It was interesting because I didn't have a background in exercise science. So I had a background in recreation park administration. So I really, as a businessman, had to become that specialist. And I thought I was pretty good at it over the years. I mean, I still today retained all that I've learned because we spent a whole year on it. And I had to, and I was the only student in class.
So you brought in this PhD to work with you. Essentially, you kind of became a dynamic duo.
I worked actually mostly with
personal
USC.
trainer with
After
the
that,
PhD and the scientific method, the winning results method, and then
USC or UCLA.
Yeah,
science-based kids, adults.
Wow.
But I made it at a point that we were going to work with the actors in Hollywood. They would get the best of the best, and the best people to do it with the right information, not someone that had an idea.
Right.
To do it.
I love it.
Yeah. What really worked? And that's what this method did. It's quite thick, as you can see.
I can see that. Yeah. I'm loving to, if you can send us an excerpt or something, I'd love to post it up.
Well, my thanks to all my staff at that time and others that worked with they were all a part of this. It's not one person's anything, as you know.
Sure.
But I was the guy that was the front guy that had to look at Tom Hanks in the face and say, he like in Philadelphia, it was shot in sequence. So when they said you have contracted AIDS, in that moment in time, Tom had to lose a half a pound of body fat every day to prepare him for the shirt off scene at the end of the movie. And he lost exactly a half a pound a day because of what we coordinated for him with a nutritionally dense diet format that had a caterer work with us on that was reduced in calories. And at the end of the day, he would actually burn 1,000 calories off before he went to bed. That's true. So it's funny because afterwards, everyone would ask how Tom lost the weight, and I never would talk about what we did. So I called Tom and I said, I think it was Vogue magazine or somebody. And I said, they want to talk about weight loss, Tom. Is that okay for me to do it? And he goes, I love this statement. Dan, the truth is the truth. Meaning, of course, you can talk about whatever it is. And I love that. I've learned so much from Hollywood.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's a good statement. John Travolta's example, I remember him when he were talking about people. He said, Dan, he said, when I look at a person, he said, if I see a person who there's a homeless person in that situation, he said, I'll find something really great to say about him. Like, hey, you have beautiful green eyes, or you're really sick. I'll say something positive. So that's a lifelong, use it. Christopher Reeve, we started for Superman. Chris said, Dan, if there isn't a fun factor to this, I will not do this. So we did all kinds of different things. We was a very great athlete. Windsurfing is the instrument-rated pilot. In windsurfing, we did cycling, we did swimming, we did circuit training. That's how he trained for the last Superman he did.
Wow. Tell us about The Matrix. I was floored when that movie came out. Very intrigued. Of course, the martial arts sequences, the physicality of that. Tell us about what you did and whom you worked with on The Matrix.
I worked with Laurence. So the producer had me meet at Beverly Hills Hotel with Laurence, and they were going to do this movie called Matrix, and Warner Brothers, as I recall. Yeah, and Laurence was great. It was mostly it was he loved to work with Total Gym when we were on location. That was good. We used Total Gym too sometimes. I love Total Gym. They're great folks, by the way. But Fish really he had to lose weight and had body fat change. That's what we focused on. Was leanness, because when you see Morpheus, he's lean, he's smart, he's big, he's strong. He's a leader. And he's great. And so that's what that was. We really focused on body leanness, strength training related to that, and then a nutritious menu of foods that could empower him to be Morpheus. And that's in a broad stroke what we did with him. He's a great guy. Most people don't know that if you watch the movie Apocalypse Now, in one scene when the boat's they're on the river somewhere in Cambodia, and there's a gunner there. I think he was maybe 17 or 18, but he was that guy. That's his first movie role. I think it was Apocalypse Now. He's a great actor. If you ever haven't seen Aquila and the Bee, you should watch it. It's another great actor that actress now is quite well known too. But long story short, I think with the Matrix was interesting too, because they actually rented
and trained these guys.
And you know what? It showed, and it was great money spent because Keanu, who I worked, in the movie business at that moment in time, 10 years later, there were enough trainers that already worked with people. So Keanu had his trainer, the other, and I was Fish's trainer. So we had another person I had was a PhD from USC that was working with me at the time that worked with me on that project too. But, I would always hire people better than me. I mean, I'm the first person, like when we were on location with Johnny Depp in London for Dark Shadows. We actually had people from the All England rugby team. We had a massage therapist. We had a chef that was there on site. And I would always make sure that I was surrounded by people a lot smarter than me, or better at what I could do, in certain areas.
Yeah.
And it's a godly thing. We are a culture of love your neighbor as yourself. and
Hmm.
we're a person that we collaborate in life, and that's God's way, in my opinion.
Hmm.
And find out we're all, it's like it talks about we're all a family. The hip
Yeah.
that's connected to the knee,
Mm.
connected to the ankle. Without the whole body, you can't
Right.
do much.
Absolutely. It's fascinating on a scientific basis that all humans are related. I mean, it's established. There's common DNA patterns that you can see, and everybody traces back to what they call mitochondrial Eve.
Yeah.
And I'm no big expert on genetics here, but there is a common mother that they've traced now called mitochondrial Eve, because you can watch it through people's genetic changes in the mitochondria and all that, which comes only from the mom. So it's been a fascinating concept.
Well,
Um,
it's fascinating, really.
yeah.
When I'm a person like me now, that I look, my expertise, and I'm thankful that God put me in this place, was to really be the collaborator for that. And my wife, quite frankly, has been so good because she would be the balance for me.
Hmm.
We're different in a lot of ways. I get up and I eat and I drink and I do have a routine, and she'll get up and food's not her on her mind.
Hmm.
She loves to walk. She's a great walker, tennis player.
Hmm.
I like weight training. I like
Hmm.
doing adventuresome kinds of things. I mean,
Hmm.
I love that kind of thing. I rode a bull one time. I jumped I did a bungee jump. I'm that person.
Right.
But you need balance. Balance. Back to my point of what I am: balance and focus, and that's our
Hmm.
takeaway. And what Galileo said, I think, says it best: you can't teach anyone anything. You need to help them find it within themselves.
I see.
And I do that well,
Hmm.
I think, and
Hmm.
I think we do it well. And I encourage people to understand that, love people enough to help them find something within themselves that's positive.
Yes. Fantastic. That's a great way to close. Thinking about that, being of service to others, finding something positive to say about them, realizing we're all connected. Absolutely. Do you have any final tips on, let's say, the idea of successful aging? That's one thing that everybody will do, is undergo the aging process, right? And so you can do that in some senses poorly, right? Where we neglect things and then we get hurt and things fall apart. We're trying to fix this problem, or we're being over aggressive with ourselves. We're getting hurt. We're always comparing ourselves to the 20-something-year-old perfect physical version, and we're feeling like dashed expectations, right? So what are your suggestions for successful aging in terms of health and wellness? I'd like to end on that point.
Sure. Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you. I mean, again, I look to you and others in the field that we know about that have great information. And thank you for your leadership, because people like me need that. And we also need to understand that in terms of lifelong kinds of things for aging, it's not a number. It's been hard for me because I always was the youngest in my class. I always wanted to be that.
Mm.
I was never that excited about birthdays. I liked where I was, but
Yeah.
that doesn't work. I'm here to
Yeah.
tell you that my idea did not work. You do age, and you do embrace it, and love it, embrace it. And my wife said this earlier. Kim said this earlier this morning. She says, "Don't be afraid of change."
Mm-hmm.
I think don't be afraid of change. It's not a number. It's the way you feel. It's what's your purpose?
Mm-hmm.
Do your purpose. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
have a carrot in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
These are all positive things with aging, and don't compare yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Don't compare yourself in height, weight, what you didn't do. I have difficulty with that. I'm a ruminating guy sometimes.
Yeah.
It's not good. So I think the three takeaways again are, it's not a number. It's not a number. It's who you are. Have a purpose, have a goal in mind, and do something good and uplifting for others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well spoken, Dan. Thank you for sharing some time this morning. Very much enjoyed it. Very insightful, to understand what all goes on in Hollywood, on kind of merging the worlds of fitness and Hollywood, which I really had no insight about. So that was quite intriguing. And thank you for your perspective as well on just being a human being, living a life on purpose, mindset, successful aging. You've got a lot of wisdom to share, and I wish you all the best. I know you're working on new books and working on projects and such. And so I hope that that all just goes swimmingly, smashingly well for you.
Well, great. And I want to thank all the people in my life that have been across my paths that have helped me. Paramount, particularly Sony,
Mm.
and those folks there, and Governor's Council, and oh my,
Hmm.
people in the fitness field. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, until next time, Manna, listening audience, we give you our warmest wishes and hope that you're blessed and doing well. And we'll be in touch with our next episode shortly. Okay? Take
Thank
care.
you. Thank you.
You're welcome.